My name is William Wesley Potter, better known as Bill, and this is my life.
My name is Joan Potter, and this is my life. I was born in May 21st, 1929 in San Francisco. Well, my family is all from Scotland and Ireland. I have records of my grandparents' wedding, but he and his wife moved to New York. He was a shoemaker and came with his lass and ended up by being a very, very wealthy man. Every shoe was made, they had a lass that fits your foot, and the shoe was made for you. He had shoe stores all over the world, and I've seen quite a few of them myself. They're all gone now because handmade shoes were just too expensive.
And I was born September 9th, 1926 in Los Angeles. I was born in a hospital. There was an article in the paper about us because I have a twin sister. And we were born in what was called we were locked twins. So they had to have a cesarean to get us out. We wrestled a lot when we were kids, and this was our first instance of doing that. I guess my grandfather was a legend. He was a scientist, and he worked for George Westinghouse. And George Westinghouse offered him a scholarship and sent him over to Göttingen in Germany to get it, because that was the big physics electrical place in those days, to get a degree, an SCD degree. And that's where my father and his twin sister were born, and his older sister, my aunt. And shortly after he came back from Germany, he inherited a large amount of money and quit work. And the legend was he piddled it all away before my father and his twin sister and his older sister could get a hold of it.
My grandfather's name was Douglas Gerald Alexander Colley McNeil, and his wife's name was Frances, and her maiden name was Higginson. And they married in Colorado. They lived 38 years in Mexico. He was a British consular of Western Mexico. And my mother was born in Mexico. And I say that to some people, and they'll say, well, you don't look Mexican. And I say, well, I don't think so either. But if you'd like that, yeah, okay. My mother's full name was Dorothy Frances Colley McNeil. She was born in Guaymas, Mexico. She was the 9th child, the only one that lived beyond infancy. And so my grandmother was pretty protective of her. They lived a pretty amazing life. I can remember my grandmother telling me tales about them. Revolutions went on all the time in Mexico at that time. And they helped people escape over the rooftops at night. My mother was a very, very strong woman. And she did, she hunted and shot and fished, and I mean every kind of fishing you can possibly imagine.
My mother's full name was Florence Gates Jones, and she was born in Alameda in 1901. She was quite a lady, very gentle, very sweet, very caring person. I liked my mother very much. She was the first ever woman sports editor for the Trojan USC sports magazine, which was a male bastion in those days. And for her to break in as the sports editor, I think, was really an accomplishment.
My father's full name was Richard Addison Hannon, and he was born in Brooklyn, New York. My parents divorced when I was 9, and so I do have quite a few memories before he left the house. He was just like, he reminded me of a New Englander that just couldn't talk, no small talk. My father was always into some kind of investments, and also he mined with Herbert Hoover. at one time when he was in mining in the Colorado and California area. I mean, I did funny things with my dad. I went up to a mine one day and they had, it was mercury. And he let me play with mercury, and you know what they'd say today? I'd be dead, I guess. But I played with it because it rolled around in those wonderful little balls. So I did some things with my dad.
My father's full name was Charles Henry Potter, and he was born in Göttingen, Germany in 1898. I remember him as being rather a good-looking guy. And he went to USC, and that's where he met my mother. They got married in 1924, and we came along, as I said, in 1926. He had a house designed, bought a lot, and built a house all on an income of $100 a month. And he went through bankruptcy just before the big crash in 1929. And then he went through bankruptcy again in 1933. So things were a little tight. And we were never hungry. But I remember people coming to the door when I was young, and my mother telling me, my father went out the back door, and my mother told me, don't tell them where he went. So I knew things were a little tight. So he was always very careful with his money. In 1935, he went with Goodall Rubber, and they assigned him as the branch manager up in San Francisco. And so that's when the family moved from Los Angeles to San Francisco. And we actually relocated across the Golden Gate in Sausalito.
I have a younger sister. Her name is Jackie Deetkin. We're almost 4 years of difference in age, and we did lots of things together. She said I was mean, and I thought she was driving me crazy. After we became adults, we have become very, very close.
No, Bill and I did a lot together, especially when we were little. And then we had friends. We ran around in Los Angeles. There were friends. We had different places.
Well, she was bigger than I was, and she beat up on me. And about the time I decided I could beat up on her, my father said, men don't hit ladies. So there I was. But yes, we're quite close, and the older we get, the closer we are, which is nice.
When I was a child, I lived in San Francisco. It was a huge house in the Pacific, what they call Pacific Heights, above the Presidio. I played a lot of badminton by the time I was 10 years old until my late teens. And I skied and rode horses. That was my big thing. And spent some couple of summers in the mountains, driving herds of horses to their feeding ground for the summer up in the high Sierras. Well, I remember Christmas when my parents were still married. They always had a party Christmas Eve, and we weren't invited. This was an adult party. They put the tree up because Santa Claus brought the tree, and partied all night long. And of course, we were always up at 5:30 in the morning. They weren't interested in us at that time.